Hello, thank you so much for staying here on the AM show. I'm Bernice Abu-Baidoo Lansah. Just gone by was AM business, it's interesting that as people are preparing for Christmas, there are many who cannot even begin to think about celebrating the festivities because there are issues of safety where they are. I'm talking about persons living in Bawku. We understand that some of them have already started fleeing the area. 6 persons have been confirmed dead in the latest resurgence of conflict in the area. It's a really disturbing situation. My colleague Albert will be giving us a quick update on what the situation is like there this morning. We understand that the RECSEC has deployed more security to deal with the problem. Hello, Albert. So earlier we saw the persons instigating the conflict or perpetrators of violence in this conflict, attack some installations, causing a power cut to communities in and around Bawku, but that has been restored by NEDCO. We also know that the RECSEC has deployed more personnel to ensure that there is safety in the area. What's the update there this morning? Sorry, Albert, can you kindly unmute your device so we hear you?
Yes, Benny. So what I can tell you is that peace is returning, calm is returning to the Bawku Township this morning, mainly, of course, because of the deployment of security to the area and how seriously the Regional Security Council has been taking this matter since it researched about 3 days ago. So this morning, people are going about their normal everyday activity, but you would still have to, you would understand that because of how serious the recent attacks have been, the calm is still uneasy for a lot of people who live in the area. There are reports that some people have actually left town to neighboring areas like Zebila, Binduri, and even to Bolga to live with relatives because they don't feel safe. And so that is the situation this morning. The Regional Security Council is telling us that the security they have brought there to reinforce what was already there will continue to remain until they are sure that things are a bit normal. But let me just indicate that, for the last 1 year, there's always been a security station in Bawku. They only call for more men when things are getting out of hand. Now, there are reports about some of the nurses and even teachers who live there who are no longer feeling so safe about doing their work because of all of this. So it's really bringing normal everyday activity in terms of economic and work activity to a standstill. People are not feeling very easy doing their work, although we haven't heard about shootings today or yesterday.
Right. Albert, do we know what triggered the recent resurgence of violence?
So it still has to do with the long-standing chieftaincy conflict that has been in Bawku for many years now. What we understand was that the recent attack started when a man was attacked in his home and shot and killed. His son was also shot in the process. And then there were reprisals after this happened. And that is why we have the recent situation.
And this man who was shot and killed, do we know who he is? Has it been established why he was the target of this violence?
Yes. So the difficulty normally with the police, for instance, is that when you begin to report the names and giving the identities of people, you may just be encouraging more reprisals, because if one of the factions get to know that the person belongs in their faction, you may just escalate the situation. So they have not been very forthcoming when it comes to releasing the name of this person or his identity. But we do know that he belongs to one of the factions, and obviously he was targeted because of this long-standing chieftaincy issue. Remember that it has been going on for a very long time, and for most people who are watching this conflict in Bawku, they keep telling us that sometimes it is now more about retaliation rather than the long-standing chieftaincy conflict, because people now attack because their relatives have been attacked, or people who belong in their factions have been attacked. Once that happens, normally you would have reprisal. So retaliation has also become center stage when it comes to this issue. So that is the situation that we have.
Albert, I'll just have you hold on for a while. Let me pick the thoughts of security analyst Dr. Adam Bonar. Good morning to you, Doc, and thank you for joining the program. So, as my colleague rightly reported, this seems to be linked to the long-standing chieftaincy dispute in the Bawku area. We know how hard we've been working to bring Bawku back to a point where we could all relax and say we know for sure that we're not going to have any resurgence of violence. It's been quiet for some time around that area, only for us to hear the resurgence of violence leading to the loss of 6 lives. I mean, from where you sit, and obviously from the information you have, would you say that this is a one-off, or it is actually a detour in our path to taking Bawku to long-lasting peace?
Well, I would say it's a detour. A good morning to yourselves and Albert, who just reported. Last night, in fact, I slept around 1 a.m. Having back and forth conversation with the feuding parties, speaking to their leaders, letting them understand why it is important to, let the guns be quiet. Spoke to several of them, spoke to some youth commanders, some of the warring factions, some very important chiefs in the area, trying to let them know it is a needless conflict, and they would have to find a way to make sure the guns are quiet. It took me between several hours trying to speak to several of them. Somehow been successful talking to them, and the promise is that they will speak to the young people, their colleagues who are shooting, to let peace prevail, at least for the time being, whilst we try to understand what brought about this round of violence. If you quite remember, our last visit to the Bawku area, myself, I was part of the delegation, CDS, IGP, Interior Minister, Defense Minister, you can mention all the other security couples. We went to Bawku, we sat with the various, groups, the leaders, Bawku Naba, the Mamproses, met all of them. And the promise was that we wouldn't see any exchange of fire and any killings for at least 90 days or 3 months. And we were expecting that the 3 months would have ended around December, December. And so that we could go back there, sit with them again, and see how we can plan towards a more meaningful, lasting solution, to the area and also to the conflict, bring some lasting solution to the conflict. But unfortunately, from nowhere, this old man was shot, his son shot, and, escalation just went from 0 to probably 100 people. He asked us yesterday, three people who don't belong to either of the sides. I think they are Bosanges, who had traveled to Bawku, and there were 4, in fact. And, you know, one of them got down. The 3 proceeded to, is it the council yard or so, and they dragged them, asked them, where are you going to? They mentioned they were going to a nearby community, and they were presumed to belong to one of the factions, and they were shot. 3 of them, they were shot and killed, according to my sources, you know, a very reliable source in Bawku. And so when these things go on, it becomes very difficult to sit with them, and coupled with the fact that they have also withdrawn. In fact, my conversation last night was to appeal to them to go back to the peace dialogue, the peace council dialogue, because then our brothers, the Kusasis, have withdrawn from the dialogue, and they have, you know, reiterated their concerns. And so once they are not part of the peace dialogue, it becomes difficult to say you are going to talk about peace when one of the feuding parties has withdrawn. So mine was to see how can we get them to go back whilst we try to broker peace, you know, back into the traditional area. And bear in mind, we have the Samampede festival that is supposed to take place on the 30th. So our going back to Bawku, if we were going to go, or if we have to go, is supposed to coincide with this Samampede. But unfortunately, the way things are going, several of the indigents have left Bawku Township because of this. Nurses, teachers, you know, you can mention, the list is unending. Very worrying, I must be honest with you. Yeah.
And Doc, worrying indeed, because that scenario you just described is almost like one from a conflict movie where people are just dragged and shot at for obviously no real reason or proof even of identity. No. So you mentioned that you had visited the place together with some security couples in the country, and you were given some assurance that at least for 3 months you were not going to see anything. Now you've been given another promise. Are you confident about this? Are you just hanging on to that word alone, or there's more we can do to ensure that at least this promise of ensuring peace for some time until the dialogue begins will be realistic or realized?
Well, do I have a choice? Some of us, we don't have a choice. In situations like this, in conflict resolution, you just have to keep pushing and keep changing your method, and the methods that are working, you keep improving upon them. And so we don't seem to have a choice than to appeal, because where we have gotten to, the security solution to Bawku will never work. The security solution, it's temporary. You can send the entire Ghana Police Service, send the entire military to Bawku, and Bawku will still be, you know, in tatters. And so we just have to appeal to their conscience, let them know that it is needless. They don't have to fight. But I am believing that, you know, the promise that they would talk among themselves, they would meet among themselves and ensure that some semblance of peace returns to Bawku, at least for the time being. Mine is that it should be, at least for the time being. They gave us 3 months, and in fact, they adhered to the 3 months. I must, you know, congratulate them for 3 months, for some time, for a very long time, since this conflict, you know, reignited about 2 years ago. We hadn't seen a period more than a week where there hadn't been clashes. But for more than 2 months, maybe about 10 weeks, we really didn't see people needlessly dying. I heard you mention 6. The number is more than 6. Those who have died. Right. I think the last 72 hours or so, you can say 6. But the number is gone beyond 10, around 15, according to what my sources is giving me. Right. Which to me is worrying.
We'll need to confirm that with the police. And that's another
thing.
Yeah, and that's another thing I was coming to quickly. It appears that when it comes to the Bawku conflict, obviously conflicts must be handled carefully and treated not like any ordinary situation, especially when there's loss of life. But it appears that when it comes to the Bawku conflict, there's just something peculiar about it. So you just had Albert Sori say, for example, depending on who you're talking to, you're not likely to get the full picture. It appears even the police itself is not too confident there in the town in terms of its role in dealing with the problem. How deep is this conflict, and how has it affected even the confidence of the men there and other security personnel in even ensuring that, for even us as journalists, we get the right information?
You see, let me just paint a vivid picture of Bawku to you. Before we went to Bawku the last time, Bawku was like Liberia or Sierra Leone. That is how Bawku was. So you couldn't cross. If you were Kusasi, you couldn't cross from where the Kusasis are to where the Mamposis are. If you did, you are sure that you won't come back again alive. They might not even find your body. When we visited Bawku, the briefings we had with regards to the security, they showed us, in the chronological order, people who have been shot dead in their farms and partly bent for no apparent reason. And so Bawku has become a dent on our democracy. Bawku has become a war zone, if you want to paint it that way. There is deep suspicion. And so if you landed in Bawku today, depending on who you are talking to, if you gave out an information that looked like you belonged to one of the feuding parties, you are likely to be killed. And that is what happened to these three persons I'm told are Bosanges also. Bosanges are not Mamproses, they are not Kusasis. So why would anybody? But when I'm told that when they alighted and they asked them, where are you going to? The town they mentioned they were going to, there were suspicions, so they killed them immediately. So Bawku has become the Liberia we saw, the Sierra Leone we saw, where people were literally shot in broad daylight. That is how Bawku eventually has become. And now they have moved away from killing, innocent persons and attacking, state properties, and assets. They shot into an ambulance, a fire tender that was heading to some homes that have been touched, I think 2-3 days ago. They shot into the fire tender and, damaged the fuel tank and the fuel leak. They would have killed the fire officers in Bawku Township, those who were heading. They shot into power pylons, and Bawku went out, into darkness for several days. They've shot into transformers. So my point is that it has become so confusing. Some of us, you need to, sometimes when you think you are ahead of the situation, you are understanding it, then comes another round of confusion where the trend is changing. And once the trend is changing, it means you have to take some steps back and try to understand the trend as an analyst or a security person. And that is a confusion, because then my question is, we have people who are warlords, who are connected to this Bawku conflict, who are profiting from selling bullets and firearms to the combatants in Bawku. And my point is that that is also another issue that we have to look at. Because then once you have persons linked to Bawku selling bullets to combatants and making sure that so long as the conflict rages on, they benefit, then we are in trouble. Now we have Burkina Faso, which is about 60% in the hands of rebels. Do we know if some of these rebels have crossed into the territory of Ghana through Sankasi or through the other areas into Ghana, and they are fomenting some of this trouble? Because now attacking state what do you call it, assets,
installations,
like power lines that supply electricity to Ghana, to the Bawku area, to Togo, part of Togo, and then part of Burkina Faso. They brought those lines down, shot into transformers. It took time for them to fix it. So the dimension is taken. If we don't pay attention to Bawku, Bawku would be the route that probably will lead us to what Burkina Faso has gotten itself into and the other neighboring countries. So I think that I would appeal to our state security or the government, directly appeal to the President of the Republic to pay a special attention to Bawku, because not paying special attention to Bawku and the attention only is on security. Security solution to Bawku alone will not work. It's a temporary solution. If you want a lasting solution to Bawku, there are reasons why these people are fighting. Let's see, how do we handle it? If we're able to deal with that, fine. If not, you know what, it's going to be difficult. Some of us, like I told you, I slept at 1 a.m. And I'm sure those I spoke to might be listening to me, and they will tell you how sometimes I spent about an hour or an hour and a half speaking to one person. And, you know, you have to continuously let them know that, you know what, put your guns down, you are a leader, tell your colleagues to put, then they will tell you that they have the firearms, they have the bullets in their numbers. What do you do?
Right.
What do you do? So for me, it's worrying. I think we must pay special attention to Bawku.
Right. You say it's a dent on our democracy. Those are your words. You further appeal to the president to pay special attention. But beyond sending men there, deploying men there, what real steps can be taken to ensure that we deal with this, which is, like you say, taking on a new dimension, which could plunge us into deeper chaos?
Okay, so some of the things I picked up last night, or this dawn, talking to them, have to do with the fact that those who are committing these crimes, some of them are known, but they are not arrested. And so, or the guy is arrested and sent to Bolga for prosecution. The next thing, the guy is released and he comes back into town. And so once the guy is back, they tend to mock the other side and say, well, we shot you, we killed you, we are back. And so mine is that we need a holistic solution to Bawku, and that should involve the three organs of government. We need the executive, the president and his team to, come on board. We need the, the legislative arm, and we need the judiciary. If these three arms decide to work together and bring in the feuding parties to a round table, mine is that the reason why these, organs must come together in trying to help resolve Bawku is that if the guy is sent to, to court, obviously, he will have to go and meet a judge, and the judge would have to give a certain ruling and say, you've been granted bail. But what are the bail conditions? Would the bail conditions involve, don't go back to Bawku, or you are supposed to be granted bail, and then the bail you sign that you are supposed to be confined into you are not supposed to leave a certain area. These are some of the things that I think we should be looking at. But unfortunately, it's been a bit of disconnect solution we are trying to profile when it comes to Bawku. So for me, we should look at it. As for the chieftaincy dispute, we all know it is a chieftaincy dispute, but it is moved from the realm of chieftaincy dispute to the realm of criminality, the realm of people profiting. And therefore, that angle we have got, because sometimes they start this conflict just so that they can steal people's cattle. They start them so they can break into your cement shop and steal your cement and steal your rice, steal your groceries, steal other stuff. So it's once it moves into that area, those who perpetrate these crimes, for them, the conflict must go on so they can benefit. So I think that until such a time that we can bring all of these people onto a round table, the three organs of government, bring the Kusansis, the Mamprosis, add the chief, the peace council, CSOs, and add, even all of you, the media, and make sure that these things are discussed and probably solutions. They gave us 3 months, and in fact, they did well. And I think that if we keep pushing and working with them, we will find some semblance of solution. Once we say those who are not happy, the courts, the doors of the courts are still open. If you think something is not good for you, either of the side or both of them can head back to court and you know, deal with this issue. If not, then you know what, we will be there, and Bawku would be the angle where probably those who want to hit Ghana where it will hurt would use it to hit Ghana. And so far so good, we really haven't had terrorists attacking us. So we have that record that hasn't been touched. But are we looking on and inviting them in this manner? Because then what is going on? Shooting innocent people, shooting into state assets, shooting, you know, buses, shooting, I mean, children, women, old men, stealing, and we are just watching. The security solution alone, for me, will not be a solution, you know, a more permanent solution to Bawku. Let's have a more permanent solution to Bawku. Thank you.
I appreciate your time here this morning, Dr. Adam Bonai. Thank you for your help in trying to resolve the situation in Bawku. Dr. Adam Bonai is a security analyst, and he's been sharing his thoughts with us with regards to the situation in Bawku. If I still have Albert on, quickly, Albert, what are the residents saying? Because they are at the heart of this, and we know that there are businesses, there are schools, hospitals, all affected by this. What is the mood in the town, and what are the residents saying?
And that, like I said earlier, people are not going about their normal everyday activity with the kind of ease that you will find in peaceful places. So for most of the residents of Bawku, they are just living in fear because they do not know when you know, you'll be caught in the middle of a shooting incident, for instance. On market days, people are even scared to go to the markets. There are people who, like I said, have left the town and moved to other places for their own safety. There are teachers who are afraid to go to school. And just like Doctor was describing, it is difficult for either side to cross to the area where the other side lives. So if, for instance, you are a teacher and you belong to one of the factions, but your school is on the other side, it definitely means that you will not even attempt to go to work. Right. The same applies for people who are nurses and people who have jobs on the side where their rivaling faction lives. So it's basically making life difficult for everyone. And the expectation is that, you know, peace returns soon so that people can go about their normal everyday life.
Finally, before you go, I'm just curious, how do they identify if you are Kusasi or Mamprusi?
I think it mostly would have to do with, I mean, of course, if they are not sure, I'm not sure you'll be attacked. But, I mean, they live in almost close proximity to each other. So they would know each other by faces. They will identify each other because some other person knows you and will, you know, tell the others, etc. It's really difficult to tell how they do it. But these attacks go on. There was a time when somebody from one of the factions traveled to Bolga. The person was in a vehicle returning into the Bawku Township. The vehicle was stopped and the person was brought out of the vehicle and shot. So it appears they have their own methods of, you know, keeping eyes on each other and knowing when you are in a place where you could easily be attacked. And that is the unfortunate situation, Bernice.
Thank you very much. Albert Sori is our correspondent in the Upper East region, bringing us an update on what's been happening in Bawku. We'll keep our eyes there. We know that RegSec has deployed more security. We expect that there will be some other measures, practical measures taken, and we will be following up and updating you as well. Now, water is life. It regulates your body temperature and keeps you alive and kicking. Awake is premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect sizes for all occasions, 330 and 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 ml for the heavy drinkers, and 1.5 liters for those who always want more. We've introduced our special 19-liter jar for offices and homes. Now, you just need to stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. Come on, grab a bottle of Awake water and get quality hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. Produced by Casapreco. For bulk purchase, please call 026-235-1251. This advert is FDA approved. We'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we get interactive with you. Do stay.